the man who had everything. Imagine, for a moment, that you've finally done it. You've climbed the mountain, you have the corner office, the vintage car, the sprawling estate, and a legacy that people speak of in hushed, reverent tones. You've tasted every pleasure, mastered every discipline, and outsmarted every rival. You are, by every modern American standard, the winner. But then, in the quiet hours of a Tuesday morning, as the sun creeps over the horizon, a cold, terrifying thought settles in your chest. Is this it? You look at your hands, and you realize they are trying to grasp the wind. You look at your achievements, and they feel like a sandcastle facing an incoming tide. This isn't a modern midlife crisis. This is the oldest, most honest journal ever written. It was penned thousands of years ago by a king who had more wealth than Silicon Valley and more wisdom than any Ivy League professor. He looked at the American dream of his day, the grind, the hustle, the pursuit of more, and he called it by a name that still haunts us, Hevel, a vapor, a smoke. Today, we aren't just reading an ancient religious text. We are stepping into the mind of a man who went to the edge of the world, looked over the side, and came back to tell us what actually matters when the lights go out. If you've ever felt like you're running a race with no finish line, or if you've ever wondered why the good life feels so empty, then pull up a chair. We need to talk about the Book of Ecclesiastes. We need to talk about the smoke, the words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. These are the famous, jarring opening lines of Ecclesiastes. In our modern English Bibles, we often see that word vanity or meaningless. But to a modern American ear, vanity sounds like someone staring too long in a mirror, and meaningless sounds like nihilism, the idea that nothing matters at all. But the Hebrew word the teacher actually uses is Hevel. And Hevel doesn't mean zero, it means vapor. It means smoke. Think about that for a second. Imagine a cold winter morning in New York or a foggy dawn in San Francisco. You see your breath. It's there, it's visible, it's real. But the moment you try to reach out and grab it, your fingers close on nothing but air. That is the core paradox of our lives. Life is beautiful, life is intense, and life is very real, but it is also confusing, fleeting, and impossible to pin down. It is smoke. The teacher stands as an observer of what he calls life under the sun. This is a crucial phrase. He isn't looking at things from a heavenly perspective yet. He is looking at life from the ground up, the raw, unfiltered human experience. He looks at the horizon and sees a world that is ancient, repetitive, and indifferent to our frantic rushing. He says, "Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever." Have you ever walked through an old cemetery or looked at a photograph of a bustling city street from 100 years ago? Every single person in that photo had a favorite song. They had a secret crush. They had a to-do list that felt incredibly urgent. They had worries that kept them up at night. And now, they are gone. The sun they saw is the same sun that woke you up this morning. The wind that brushed their faces is the same wind blowing through your backyard. The teacher points to the cycles of nature to show us how small we really are. The sun rises, the sun sets, and then it hurries back to where it started. The wind blows south, then turns north, swirling round and round. The rivers all flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. Nature is a giant, eternal machine of motion, but it never seems to get anywhere new. And then there's us. We live in a culture that is obsessed with the new. We want the new iPhone, the new fashion trend, the new political movement, the new breakthrough. We are convinced that we are the first generation to truly get it. But the teacher leans back, sighs, and says, "What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun." Every original idea you have is likely a remix of something someone thought of in a tent 3,000 years ago. Every unprecedented crisis we face has a historical twin. This isn't meant to make you depressed. It's meant to deconstruct your ego. It's meant to pull you off the treadmill of thinking that your specific era is the pinnacle of human history. The teacher admits that no one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. That's a hard pill to swallow for an audience raised on the idea of leaving a legacy or making a permanent mark on the world. We spend our lives building digital monuments on social media, trying to ensure we are seen and remembered. But the teacher is honest with us. The fog eventually swallows everything. This is the paradox of Hevel. We are driven to find a gain or a profit for all our hard work under the sun. We want our lives to add up to a final, permanent sum. But if life is smoke, how can you keep a tally? How can you store a cloud in a box? This realization is the beginning of wisdom. You cannot master the smoke. You cannot control the vapor. You can only acknowledge it. The teacher is stripping away our illusions of control, not to leave us in despair, but to prepare us for a different way of living. He wants us to stop squinting at the sun, trying to find a permanent shadow, and instead start looking at the reality of the mist. Because once you realize you can't grab the wind, you might finally stop trying to catch it and start learning how to breathe it in. So, the teacher decides to conduct an experiment. And not just any experiment, this is the ultimate life hack. He has the resources, the power, and the intellect to test every single thing we modern humans are still chasing today. He decides to see if he can find the good life through sheer effort and acquisition. He starts with pleasure. In our world, we call this living for the weekend. It's the pursuit of the next high, the next vacation, the next dopamine hit from a purchase or a party. The teacher says, I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. He surrounds himself with laughter, wine, and every luxury imaginable. He denies his heart nothing. But after the party ends and the hangover of reality sets in, he looks at the empty bottles and the faded music and concludes, this too is Hevel. It is madness. Have you ever noticed how the thing you thought would make you happy, the new car, the upgraded phone, the dream house, starts to feel normal within 3 months? Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. We run and run, but we stay in the same place emotionally. The teacher discovered this thousands of years before the first psychology textbook was written. But he doesn't stop at pleasure. He's a high achiever. He moves on to what we would call the grind or the hustle. He starts building. He plants vineyards, designs massive gardens and parks, builds reservoirs, and accumulates a workforce that would make a Fortune 500 CEO jealous. He amasses silver and gold, the treasures of kings and provinces. He becomes greater than anyone in Jerusalem before him. In the American context, this is the self-made man. This is the person who works 80 hours a week to build an empire. And for a moment, the teacher admits there is a certain reward in the work itself. He says his heart took delight in all his labor. There is a primal satisfaction in seeing a project come to completion. But then comes the Monday morning realization. He stands back, looks at all his hands had accomplished and what he had toiled to achieve, and he sees the smoke again. Why? Because of the problem of the successor. This is a thought that haunts every successful person. Who gets all this when I'm gone? The teacher realizes that he has spent his life's blood building an empire, but he has to leave it to someone who didn't work for it. And worse, he has no idea if that person will be wise or a fool. They might take his life's work and blow it all in a weekend. This too is meaningless, he cries. A great misfortune. We see this today in the anxiety over inheritance, the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations phenomenon. We work ourselves to the bone to provide for a future we will never see, for people who might not even appreciate the sacrifice. Finally, he turns to the most noble pursuit of all, wisdom and knowledge. If money and sex don't work, surely education and the life of the mind will. He studies, he observes, he becomes the most learned man of his era. But he hits a wall here, too. He realizes that while wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness, it still doesn't save you from the ultimate end. He writes, "For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief." Think about that. The more you know about how the world works, the more you see the cracks. The more you understand about human nature, the more you see the corruption. The more you know about the American dream, the more you see the cost it extracts from families and souls. Wisdom doesn't make the world perfect, it just makes you more aware of how imperfect it is. And then the teacher looks at the wise man and the fool. The wise man lives a disciplined, thoughtful life. The fool lives a reckless, impulsive life. But then the teacher looks at the graveyard. The same dirt covers both of them. The same silence greets their names after 100 years. Like the fool, the wise too must die, he exclaims. This is the rat race at its most cynical. We are all running different lanes, some in the luxury lane, some in the hard work lane, some in the intellectual lane, but all the lanes merge into the same dark tunnel at the end. The teacher begins to hate life because the work that is done under the sun seems so heavy. He falls into a deep, existential despair. He has tried it all. He has been the billionaire, the playboy, the architect, and the philosopher. And he reports back to us that none of it, absolutely none of it, provides a profit that lasts. None of it can stop the wind from blowing or the smoke from clearing. It's a brutal assessment, but it's necessary. Because until we realize that these things cannot be our everything, we will never be free to enjoy them for what they actually are. After the crushing weight of the rat race, the teacher takes a breath and looks at the world again. He shifts his gaze from the results of our work to the timing of our lives. This leads us to what is perhaps the most famous poem in human history, words that have echoed through funeral services, wedding ceremonies, and even 1960s folk rock hits. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. He begins to list these beautiful, jarring pairs: a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. For an American audience, this hits differently. We live in a culture obsessed with progress. We want every year to be better than the last. We want up and to the right on every graph. We want to be born and plant and laugh and embrace all the time. We treat the other half of the list, the dying, the uprooting, the weeping, the mourning, as failures or glitches in the system. We try to biohack our way out of aging and therapy our way out of sadness. But the teacher is telling us that life is not a straight line toward a destination. It is a series of seasons. You cannot have a harvest in the middle of winter, no matter how much you hustle. You cannot force a time of dancing when it is a time for mourning. There is a profound relief in this realization. It means that when you are in a season of uprooting, when a job ends, a relationship fails, or a dream dies, you aren't necessarily failing at life. You are simply in a season. The smoke is shifting. The wind is blowing in a different direction. The teacher then asks a poignant question: what do workers gain from their toil? If everything is just a cycle of seasons that we can't control, what's the point? He gives a hauntingly beautiful answer. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. This is the American heart in a nutshell. We feel this eternity inside of us. We have a hunger for things that last, a desire for a story that makes sense from start to finish. We feel like we were made for something more than just a 70-year blink of an eye. And according to the teacher, we're right. We have an eternal appetite. But here's the tension. We have eternity in our hearts, but we are stuck in a temporary body, living in a temporary world. We are like people trying to watch a 4K epic movie through a tiny, distorted keyhole. We can see enough to know it's beautiful, but we can't see enough to understand the plot. This creates what we often call existential dread, or the midlife crisis. We want to know the why behind the what. We want to see the beginning to the end. But the teacher says, you can't. You aren't God. You are a creature of time, trying to understand a creator of eternity. Because we cannot control the seasons or see the whole map, the teacher offers his first piece of radical advice, a pivot that changes the entire tone of the book. He says, I know that there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live. that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. Stop and let that sink in. In a world of Hevel, in a world of smoke, the gain isn't the empire you build or the legacy you leave. The gain is the meal you are eating right now. It's the coffee in your hand. It's the satisfaction of a job well done today, even if it's forgotten tomorrow. The teacher is calling us to a radical kind of present moment living. Not a YOLO, you only live once, kind of recklessness, but a humble acceptance of the present as a gift. If you can't control the wind, stop trying to map its path and just enjoy the breeze on your face. He reminds us that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it and nothing taken from it. God's work is the only thing that is permanent. Our role is not to be the architects of eternity, but to be the grateful guests of the present. So, take a look at your life. Are you fighting the season you're in? Are you trying to force planting when it's time to uproot? Are you so worried about the end that you've forgotten how to eat and drink and find satisfaction? The rhythm of time is moving, with or without your permission. The wisdom of Ecclesiastes is learning how to step in time with the music, even when you don't know the lyrics to the next verse. The teacher now takes us into the darker corners of the human experience. If you've ever scrolled through the news and felt a surge of righteous anger, if you've ever seen a corrupt person get promoted while a kind person gets laid off, then you are standing exactly where the teacher stood. He looks at the power dynamics of the world. He sees the tears of the oppressed, and he notices something heartbreaking. They have no comforter. On the side of their oppressors, there is power. He observes that in the place of judgment, there is wickedness, and in the place of justice, there is even more wickedness. For an American audience, this hits a raw nerve. We are a people built on the ideal of justice for all. We want the system to work. We want the bad guy to go to jail and the good guy to win the trophy. But the teacher is a realist. He tells us that under the sun, the system is often broken. Sometimes, the race isn't won by the swift, nor the battle by the brave. Sometimes, time and chance happen to them all. And then, he addresses the ultimate great equalizer, death. In modern Western culture, we do everything we can to ignore death. We use filters to look younger. We tuck the elderly away in homes, and we treat death as a medical failure rather than a natural conclusion. But the teacher forces us to walk right up to the edge of the grave. He says something that sounds shocking to our ears. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. Why? Because death is the destination of every man, and the living should take this to heart. Think about that. When you are at a party, the house of pleasure, you are distracted. You are thinking about the music, the drinks, the social status. But when you are at a funeral, the house of mourning, you are forced to be honest. You ask the big questions. What did my life actually matter? Was I kind? Did I love? The teacher points out the ultimate irony. The same fate overtakes the righteous and the wicked, the clean and the unclean. A living dog is better off than a dead lion, he says, because the living know they will die, but the dead know nothing. This isn't nihilism. It's a call to urgency. If you know the clock is ticking, if you know that the smoke will eventually dissipate, then how you spend this current breath matters immensely. He warns us about the trap of envy and comparison. He notices that most of our hustle is driven by wanting to be better than our neighbor. We don't just want a good life. We want a better life than the person next door. But the teacher calls this chasing the wind. He suggests that one hand full of tranquility is better than two hands full of toil and chasing after the wind. In America, we are taught to go for two hands full. We want the double shot espresso, the double promotion, the double-digit growth. But the teacher suggests that the secret to a meaningful life isn't more, it's tranquility. It's having enough to be content and having the peace of mind to enjoy it. He concludes this section with a reminder of our frailty. We are like fish caught in a cruel net or birds taken in a snare. We don't know when our time will come. This realization should strip away our arrogance. It should make us kinder. It should make us realize that since we can't control the end, we must find a way to be faithful in the middle. We are all walking toward the same horizon. The question isn't how to avoid the horizon, but how to walk toward it with our eyes wide open. So, after exploring the smoke, the hustle, the seasons of time, and the cold reality of the grave, where does the teacher leave us? He doesn't leave us in a dark room of despair. Instead, he opens a window and lets in a surprising, gentle light. He gives us a conclusion that is as liberating as it is counterintuitive. Because life is Hevel, because it is a fleeting vapor you cannot control, the teacher says. The most logical thing you can do is to be happy. This isn't a shallow, good vibes only kind of happiness. It's a profound, defiant joy. He says, "Go, eat your food with gladness, and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for God has already approved what you do." He tells us to wear white clothes, a symbol of celebration, and to always anoint our heads with oil. He tells us to enjoy life with the people we love all the days of this meaningless life that God has given us under the sun. Think about how much this challenges the modern American psyche. We are trained to believe that joy is a reward at the end of a long race. We think, I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll be happy when I retire, or I'll be happy when the world finally becomes just. But the teacher says, no, joy is not the destination, it is the fuel for the journey. If you wait for life to be perfect, or for the smoke to clear before you enjoy yourself, you will never taste a moment of peace. The gift of God is the ability to find a slice of heaven in a very ordinary, very messy Wednesday afternoon. It's the smell of rain, the taste of a home-cooked meal, the laughter of a child, the satisfaction of finishing a difficult task. These are not distractions from the real meaning of life. These are the meaning of life. However, the teacher gives one final, urgent warning, particularly to the young. He knows that when we are young, we feel invincible. We feel like we have all the time in the world to figure it out. He says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come. He then paints one of the most hauntingly beautiful pictures of aging in all of literature. He describes the human body as an old house that is slowly falling apart. He speaks of the keepers of the house, the hands, trembling, the strong men, the legs, stooping, the grinders, the teeth, ceasing because they are few, and those looking through the windows, the eyes, growing dim. He describes the end of life with cosmic metaphors. The silver cord is severed, the golden bowl is broken, the pitcher is shattered at the spring. Then the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. It's a reminder that we are all on a countdown. But instead of this making life feel worthless, it makes every second feel priceless. The smoke is disappearing, so breathe it in while you can. The book ends with a final summary that pulls everything together. The teacher has explored every philosophy, every pleasure, and every pain. He has deconstructed our ego and dismantled our illusions of control. And here is his bottom line, the final word of the matter: fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. To fear God in this context doesn't mean to be terrified of a cosmic bully. It means to have a healthy, trembling awe for the one who holds the wind in his hands. It means acknowledging that you are the creature and he is the creator. It means stepping out of the center of the universe and letting God sit there instead. When you fear God, you no longer have to fear the smoke. You don't have to fear the injustice of the world or the mystery of the grave, because you are connected to the only thing that is not smoke. You find your meaning not in what you do or what you own, but in whose you are. The journey through Ecclesiastes is a journey from the grind to grace. It's a transition from trying to master life to simply receiving life. We live in a world that tells us to grab everything we can. The teacher tells us to open our hands, let the wind blow through them, and look up with a smile at the one who gave us the breath in the first place. As I look at this ancient text through the lens of our modern world, I'm struck by how incredibly current it feels. We live in an era of unprecedented information and connection, yet we are arguably the most anxious and burnt-out generation in history. Why? Because we have turned the rat race into a digital 24/7 competition. We are trying to turn the Hevel, the smoke of our lives, into a permanent, curated monument on our social media feeds. Ecclesiastes is the reality check we desperately need. It's a book that gives us permission to be human. It tells us it's okay to not have it all figured out. It tells us it's okay that we can't fix every injustice or predict every disaster. The beauty of this book is that it doesn't give us easy, hallmark card answers. It sits with us in the mess. It acknowledges the pain, but then it reminds us that even in a world of shadows, the light of God's gift is still shining. My personal takeaway is this: life is too short to spend it trying to catch the wind. Use that energy instead to love the people in front of you, do your work with integrity, and find wonder in the small, meaningless moments that actually make a life beautiful. Thank you so much for journeying through the mind of the teacher with me today. Exploring these ancient truths is a reminder that while the world changes, the human heart with all its longings and questions remains the same. If this story resonated with you, or if it gave you a new perspective on the hustle of your own life, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's a small joy you've discovered lately in the midst of the smoke? Drop a comment below and let's get a conversation going. If you found value in this deep dive, please consider liking this video and sharing it with someone who might need a little peace in their race. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We have many more incredible stories and philosophical gems from the Bible to explore together, stories that have shaped history and can still shape our lives today. Until next time, take a deep breath, enjoy your bread and wine, and remember, you don't have to catch the wind to enjoy the breeze. See you in the next story.